Hey, it's John Carlos, and this is Movies Worth Talking About, and I'm here with special guest
Eddie, am I that
Eddie.
special?
Well, I think you're special to me.
Oh, stop. You're turning my head.
Here to talk about Nightmare on Elm Street 5, The Dream Child, or as you pointed out last time, Nightmare on Elm Street, The Dream Child.
Yeah.
5 on the poster.
And on the VHS cover.
And the DVD and the blues and all that. But
yeah. But
yeah. Say what you want about the movie. It's got a great title, like with the and the light coming through all the cuts. Spell out The Dream Child. It's a dope way to open a movie.
Okay. Oh, all right. I love your say what you will about the movie. It makes me think that you don't look very favorably upon this.
I think the fans, the people, like I don't know anyone who's like, oh, 5's my favorite. So I say like not necessarily for me, but just in general, like I don't think it's that highly regarded.
I mean, I certainly get that. I think it gets shit on a lot, but I actually love it unironically.
I have grown over the years to really see the good in it. It's not my favorite, but I also don't discount it whatsoever. I really don't.
Nice.
I mean, yeah, I try not to, yeah, let's just because I don't really have like much to like rip on or anything as far as this goes, but I mean, I do like that right off the bat. Well, not right off the bat, because we open with like a steamy fuck scene. It's all just stomachs and arms and hair, hair draping across.
and finally a hand. It's like a hand reaching for Alice.
I can't remember what. There's something in my brain. There was some movie where like a woman is like whipping her hair across a guy. It's like a comedy, like some sort of Will Ferrell, Ben Stiller type thing where they're like, what are you doing? I don't understand what's happening. And just the hair. I can't remember. Someone in the comments let me know what comedy I'm trying to remember. But yeah, we get to the opening dream scene. We'll get to that, but then we get to the graduation. Right off the bat, just like the rest of this franchise, they like to let us know how obnoxious the parents can be in this series.
Yeah.
A staple besides, Freddy and all the little beats we talked about before. They always like to have shitty parents. Though, I love in this one, Alice's dad has really come around since part 4. He actually breaks my heart multiple times in this movie.
Yeah, totally.
The first one being the graduation scene where she's like acting like well, my fucking dad didn't show up. And then he like comes around a tree and is like, hi. And he admits that like he watched from like behind the bleachers and he didn't want to embarrass her, some old drunk showing up. And I just the guilt, like I'm watching part 5 of Nightmare on Elm Street and I'm already like feeling feelings.
Yeah.
But that guy showed up to work and they wrote his like in the hands of a lesser actor, it's only like a handful of lines. But he brings baggage.
Well, I mean, it's even like a little kind of cliche, like she's full on talking to herself as she marches away, like, it's going, telling herself the things she would love to hear, which is, a fantastic movie cliche. But I love, and I don't know how many people do that, but she pulls it off because I get the idea. I'm already on the train by then. But then when he finally kind of comes out, I remember it wasn't a character who I was looking forward to seeing again in the next movie. So the fact that he comes out and the way they bring him out, the fact that I can tell just the whole dynamic of their relationship has grown. And that in and of itself is really, really moving. That was always a huge draw for me. I mean, it's one of many, like there were a lot of hooks. This movie's all about just kind of like hooking me into the next moment. Which I think is what kind of puts it on par with the first one and the third one as far as like the way it unfolds. Yeah, seriously.
Wow.
I mean, I could still rank them, but
right. But I've never talked to anyone who put 5 onto that kind of.
Well, I mean, okay, because we're talking about the opening. Like one thing that I absolutely adore is the fact that after like the love scene and whatever, which is, it seems like a natural kind of like we talked about, a natural progression from the end of 4 when they're playing like I want you touch me or whatever the fucking I've already forgot, put him on, put him on, put him on me and all that. Well, he's doing it, he's put him on her. And I like the fact that it worked out, you know, that I like the fact that when we see Alice, she does look, even though only a year or less than a year has gone by, she seems more confident, she seems more self-assured, and even her hair color is different. Like she's got a little bit more of a blonde tinge in there, which I don't know.
Which I found off-putting when she's in the shower for the dream, because I felt like we see a lot of like her double, and I'm like, her hair's lighter, doesn't match. And then we get to like the first daylight scene. I'm like, oh no, Alice's hair is lighter. Got it.
But one thing that I love about that is just the fact that like she gets in that shower and already I'm tense. I'm like, because all of that lovey, you know, whatever and everything like that, there's the strange music playing while it's going on. And it's also got like some spiraling, you know, downward things like and all this stuff. So there's this weird like madhouse kind of feel, because it's not sexy. I'm not sitting there going like, oh fuck yeah. I'm sitting there going like, oh shit, what's this isn't going to be good. You know, this isn't going to turn out well. And then when she finally gets into, there's no sound, there's no nothing, she's alone, gets into the shower, turns on the water, and I'm just like, something's going to happen. And the fact that the water backs up and it's got, I can't tell if it's supposed to be vomit or bile or just
fucking diarrhea.
Yeah, or sewer
it's
water.
Brown.
Like, it looks terrible. Whatever it is, it's just got that seedy underside feel. And the fact that she has to like reach her hands into that water, and I'm like, there's something. Even when I saw that movie, I had never gone through anything like that. Still don't think I've gone through anything like that. But I mean, I know how it feels when you're like in the shower and you know it stopped up and you need to like get, you know, the plumber in to snake the drain, or you need to buy your own drain cleaner, and you know, so for like maybe a shower or a couple before you can get around to it, like you're basically standing there in a bath where the only stopper is like filth in the drain. So it's playing on that part of my brain. I guess I have a thing. I don't know. But so the fact that she has to reach in there and then all of a sudden, like, I don't know, also maybe the fact that it's one of their bedrooms, I never knew which one, but she's comfortable enough to go into the shower. And there's something that echoes like Dream Warriors for me with Kristen going into her bathroom and having like the hand grip and everything like that. There's something very evocative to me about, I guess, like a violation of your personal space. Like you're never more, some would say you're never more vulnerable than when you're asleep, but I'd argue like you're never more vulnerable than when you're at home in your own bathroom, naked. Well, specifically, you know,
there. I forget what documentary I was watching years ago for some horror movie, or maybe just horror in general. But someone posited that, like, yeah, there's a lot of nudity in horror, but also there's a reason behind it. It's because like you're never at your most vulnerable than when you're like naked, like you're not like, and it's true because you know. When I'm naked, I got no pockets. I got no place to put a knife or anything, like.
Right. and
the killer might see my wiener, you know, like.
Might see it. I mean, if they're a killer, they could mutilate it. They could do a lot to it.
Even worse. But that's where my brain's like, oh, my modesty. You might see it.
You might see me in my modest business suit. But no, but so I love that. I love the fact that it starts off with like a nightmare, and that she wakes up and she has to revisit it, and then like almost hesitate when she's like handling the water. Like, I'm already in. I'm already like, oh God, I'm on. I'm glad that they brought Alice back. And then when we get to go to the graduation and get to meet her friends, because that's another huge bonus for me with this movie. It's not like I dislike the friend groups in any of these movies, but this group, there's something about them that I just really like watching. They don't have much screen time together, so I have a limited amount of time to kind of like let me know like this is us. And this is our vibe, and the fact that they're all from different walks of life, but not like kind of like forced together, like in a facility. Like Dream Warriors were,
Yeah.
and the fact that there is no kind of like weird otherness between like the ones from before and the new ones, like there was in 4 in Dream Master, like the way Joey and Kincaid were kind of, you know, not a part of that group. They were part of the what was before, and here's what's coming next. I like the fact that Alice has a support system and Dan is still there, but also they really seem to get along with this group, and the fact that they, I don't know, there's I just like them. I really like.
Like I mentioned in 4, which is like a
Yeah.
kind of like a hodgepodge of different quote unquote like groups.
Yeah.
Like high school cliche archetypes. Like you
Mhm.
literally have like a comic book nerd hanging out in the same group with a jock, and he can bust his balls and call him like a stupid jock
Yeah.
because they're buds, and that's like what they do, you know.
Yeah.
It
And it does
works.
nothing, less than make me like Dan even more, because he's
Mhm.
not one of those jocks who is only going to be friends with jocks. And it makes me like Greta more. Oh my God, because I didn't know how I was going to feel about Greta the way her mother was speaking to her the first time I watched this. So what sold it for me was just like, oh my God, now I have to go gnash my teeth for the paparazzi. And I was like, oh my God, I love you.
Yeah, right. That sells you on her instantly.
Yes. And she's got that low register, which just kind of bespeaks like a casual, I don't know. It just makes her sound smarter.
But when we set
So
up
I'm
that
like,
she's
a pretty
pretty,
smart girl.
right,
I'm
she's a
yes.
model or an aspiring model. It's very easy to write when the
Yeah.
mom calls her. She's like, "Oh yes, coming, mommy," you know. But like
Right. Or to
the
make her
complete
vapid or
opposite.
even a victim. But I totally
Right.
relate to her. I'm just like, oh, I get it. Yeah, it's probably
Yep.
easier to just do it rather than have the fight. Okay. But
Yep.
you'll be back. You'll be back and, you know, spend the rest of the day with your friends or whatever. So I
Um,
love that.
and
And yeah.
God, what is not Dan, the other guy, the comic book nerd, because I don't want to keep calling him the comic book nerd.
Mark.
Mark.
Played by
Mark,
Joe Seeley. Yeah.
yeah, that is it's a you know, especially as I've gotten older, this whole not a trope in cinema, but a trope in life of like the men who
Yeah.
are friends with women, then they're just waiting to fuck them. So this idea
Right.
that like they're buddies, but like he's still hitting on her and shit. And except in high school, boys were like that and
Hmm.
didn't have tact
Right.
and were kind of desperate and obvious. I speak as an observer because I was just an absolute perfect teenager who, you know, had all the
Yeah.
tact in the world. And
Yeah. There was nothing wrong with you ever.
no, I don't relate to Mark whatsoever. And no, like Mark, yeah, but Mark's not the worst, but in any way. But it's almost in hindsight now like more accurate to write him as kind of annoyingly horny as he is, without being
Well,
obnoxious about it, you know. But
yeah. I also, I don't know, there's something about like the exchanges between him and Greta, and also the way everybody kind of like, I don't
this
know.
has been going on for a little while now, you know.
Yeah, this has been going on for a while. Like, I mean, I'm like, no, I think I'm starting to wear her down. And I think it's also largely kind of like tied into maybe of the vibe, the actual vibe between the actors, between Joe Seeley and her name is Erica Anderson. Love her. Just because I like, after seeing him in the Never Sleep Again documentary, he's sitting there talking about like, I had the, you know, job of falling in love with Erica Anderson. Not difficult at all. I'm like, oh, all right, cool. I mean, I get it. But then like later he mentioned something about like all the prosthetics that they were using for her face in her kill, and how one of them that they weren't going to use, they somehow it ended up in his hands, and he made a joke with her that it was his tub toy. And all he said was it really freaked her out. I don't know what that means because I didn't get to hear what she said.
Right.
So I don't know, like, okay, like,
Well, I think
serious,
the
just like
implication,
shut up, you know, like,
I
what
mean,
does it mean?
you're usually naked in the tub, so
Yeah, no, I
expound upon that. Very well.
No, I understand the tub toy. I don't understand like when he says it freaked her out.
Right.
How freaked out was she? Like, I mean, but she.
Side note.
What? Yeah.
I just love the story about how, and we're not going to recall trivia this whole time, but she had that appliance on, and she was supposed to like eat liquids through like a straw, and she's like eventually like, fuck that, and she ate spaghetti, and then like all that stuff sat and like cooked all day in her chin.
She smelt it all day.
Yeah, that's.
And I like tomato sauce, but not all day.
Yeah.
No. Anything that's around your face after you've eaten, anything that gathers here, you don't want to smell all day. But so anyway, but one thing that I like,
Eddie likes these kids.
I really like these kids, and because one of the things that I like that she said that actually kind of tells me everything was all right was she said like they didn't really have a bad apple in the bunch. They all got along really well, and I thought that read even in the times where like their friendship is kind of tested or anything like that. It's still, I don't know. There's something about it that felt authentic enough to me that I really enjoy watching things happen to them.
Well,
So there's
I
that.
really like that opening graduation scene
Yeah.
because I'm instantly, I don't know about you, but I instantly feel the sense of relief when I see her with like new friends, and that like even after
Hmm.
everything that happened with her and Dan, they found people, and that they get to like
Yeah.
have a high school life and friends and all that shit. It just gives me an enormous sense of relief because I want good things for Alice and Dan.
Yeah, me
So
too. And the
very
fact that
satisfying.
yeah, and the fact that I get that from the graduation scene, from the poolside scene,
Hmm.
and from Alice's bedroom when I think it's after Dan, when the rest of them are all just kind of like learning about Krueger for the first time, and some of them are more willing to listen, and others are more, like it's early. But those are like the only three scenes that are like kind of like quote unquote group scenes where there's more than like three people in the
Yeah.
group who are sharing these ideas. So they do a great, there's a great economy of storytelling, I think, in terms of like getting across what these characters mean to
Um,
each other. And
yeah.
yeah.
Towards the beginning, I think because there's things towards the third act that I think get a little redundant, but things are
Sure.
really tight in like the first third, and
Mm-hmm.
and the opposite of tight, but I think it works is I just wrote down like this graduation scene kind of goes on for a while, but I like it because it really allows us to get to know these characters
Mm-hmm.
for a bit, and then Alice's place with Dan, and then their plans, and then her dad, and then their situations with their parents, and it
Mm-hmm.
goes like that whole scene really gets to breathe in a way that not even previous movies have allowed. I
Yeah.
mean, it's been economic in the past. It's not a complaint about other movies, but this scene really goes on for quite a bit. I'm really, really,
Yeah.
really digging that vibe at the beginning of the movie.
Yeah, me
Um,
too.
Also, I forget. I think it's is it Mark's father who's like, "Hey," and he's like, just
I thought that was
like
Dan's.
there's
Isn't it
okay. Yeah, yeah, it
Dan's?
is Dan's. I mean,
Yeah.
that guy is so great at playing that. I just cannot stand. I mean, that performance is brilliant to me. Just the fucking angle. Yeah.
But oh, and one other thing, because I want to move from the opening, but
Yes.
but I mean, so much is established like so quickly in the beginning of this movie. The other thing I love about Alice's nightmare that precedes all of this is the fact that like not only is she like in the shower like naked and everything, but then she is naked like in the halls of fucking Weston Hills,
Right when she
you
falls
know,
through. Yeah.
yeah, which she falls through and everything like that. And she's just like walking there all wet and naked. And I thought the first time I saw that was in the Nightmare. I had forgotten. But the first time I saw that was in the Nightmare remake, where little what's his name? Oh, I can't remember his name. The one who's supposed to be Johnny Depp. Ah,
I don't
I
know.
usually know his name. Anyway, him. Kyle Gallner. That's his name.
Oh yeah.
When Kyle Gallner is like he's swimming, and I guess he falls asleep while he's swimming, and he's like in his Speedo outside the boiler room, like all naked and
Well,
everything. I thought like, okay, well that's kind of vulnerable, and that hasn't really been done in the franchise yet. And I was like, no, you're wrong. It was
yeah.
done in Dream Child with Alice being completely naked, having to walk down and witness the birth of
Yep.
Freddy and everything like that. And I love that it's a Freddy fake out because we think we're going to see him and we don't. But then I love when baby Freddy comes. I love little bitch. I
Yeah.
love it. It's not cute,
Let's
but it is.
let's skip. Okay, so she dreams that she is Amanda Krueger, and then that she's
Yes.
watching Amanda Krueger.
Yeah.
She gives birth, but not to like because when real Fred Krueger was born, he wasn't a little goblin. He's a guy.
Right. Right.
But she gives birth to Freddy as a baby, who then like
Yeah.
crawls into, and it fits because the implication in 4 was that the church was like the chapel from the, I forget what it was, like next to Weston Hills there was the old asylum, and it had like
Right.
it had a chapel, and
Yes.
this is, so I like there's literal dream logic that if she's dreaming about being at that institution, she's now like it would make sense that the chapel's just down the hall. Anyway,
Mhm.
he crawls into his clothes and grows big, but like also weird. Like he's like when he falls
Like
off the thing,
long
he's got these
arm and
big feet and this
yeah.
one really long arm. It looks really stupid. He looks like when I don't understand why he crosses his arms. It's just really long. He looks like in South Park, like season 1 when they clone Stan. And
Oh, right.
it's got the big head
The
and
giant
this
head,
one
yeah.
long arm. It's like, oh, pachoop chop, pachoopy chop chop. Like he looks like the Stan clone. Pacha. And he was
Yeah,
quoted as saying, pachoop
yeah.
chop, pachoopy chop chop. Here's where I get, I mean, that isn't necessarily confusing, but I just remember every time I watch it, I always just go, huh? When he's back, and I'm fine with, she's like, I shut the door on you. And then he touches her stomach. He says, but I found the key. But then
Yeah.
Amanda Krueger shows up and she's like, you shall not pass. And you're like, okay. Like the demeanor. But she's like, you brought me back to give birth to you, but now I must stop you. I must kill you. But then he's like, try it, bitch. And then she's like, wait, the door's closed. And you're like, what the fuck is happening here? Like, he didn't really bring her back because her soul is still trapped in the thing. He brought her back in a dream just so he could be birthed. But now it feels, I don't know, like we already had Amanda Krueger in 3 and none of this shit was happening. And then and she's walking the grounds at the graveyard. Like, so now she's trapped and her soul needs to be released. And I thought that maybe there'd be a payoff to that. But then in the end, they release her, like they find her body, and all she does is like tell the heroes what to do, and then they save the day, and all she didn't do shit.
She reabsorbs
No.
Freddy.
Once Freddy's defeated, but like she walks into the climax and then just tells Jacob, hey Jacob, do the thing, and then Jacob does the thing.
Yeah.
And then Freddy's defeated, and then she just walks over and picks up the baby and absorbs him. And yes, it's a nice little parallel because Alice is picking up her baby and Amanda picks up her baby and they both absorb them and go their separate ways. But I expected, find me. You need to find me in the tower. And then the fact that like Freddy's like, try it, bitch. Like she's a threat. She says, I'm here to kill you. She doesn't kill him. Like she just walks into a room and Jacob and Alice take care of it. Like I thought there'd be a better payoff to her setup.
I thought, okay, what I perceived to be happening is the fact that like the reason he shuts the doors on her and can shut the doors on her is because it doesn't seem like either one of them can really tread in the realm of another. Like they can stand at like a threshold and look at each other and speak to each other and everything like that. But for her to actually reabsorb him, because it's even in one of Lisa Wilcox's lines where Yvonne finally believes, because she's in her nightmare in the pool, like in the little Star Wars, trash compactor room with the pool,
with the little
filter thing. Yeah, the little thing. Yeah. But she gets her out of there and he starts to chase them, but he can't.
Yeah.
And he starts to slide back. I love that shot too. But then he starts to slide back and the door shuts. She's like, he can't come in because of Amanda. And I'm just like, okay, so you're telling me it doesn't do a great job of like establishing it. But when was the last time I needed things spelled out for me? I can do most of the work. You know that about me. If I like it and I do like this, I will do most of the work. So what I thought was what needs to happen is she's in her prison in the tower, her body. And again, I'm not going to say it makes sense. Like, I still don't understand, like, because they allude to the fact that I think that Freddy killed her, I think. Still, I've seen it hundreds of times. I still don't know. But they allude to the fact that like Freddy had some kind of hand in either her death or in her body not being put into consecrated ground. So her soul lives on in limbo. So he put her behind a walled thing, like he put her bones or something behind a wall in the tower.
He did that.
So she'd be trapped. So she couldn't stop him.
When they first mentioned that she killed herself, but that wasn't really the case.
Yeah.
I, like you, thought, well, did Freddy kill her? The impression I get when you go to like a church that's got a walled up thing is that this is going to sound horrible, but it is what it is. I feel like the priests and the church and the bishop, like they put her in there. I don't think Freddy had anything
Okay.
to do with that. I think she gave birth to a monster, uh, and the church doesn't want to acknowledge that. Like, oh, we fucked up. We put her in that room. Like, she got locked in that room by the orderlies, and now
Right.
she's pregnant. Oh, let's just bury this. Let's just bury all of it and say that she committed suicide. And
Oh
I think,
dear.
that just makes her whole situation incredibly tragic. On top
Yeah.
of
Well,
already,
yeah, it's
no,
tragic
no,
no matter
no,
which. Yeah.
I blame. I forget the name of it. It's called something like it's next to Weston Hills. It's like right next to it. Like they mentioned it in 3. Like, oh, sometimes you get sent over to,
Oh. I don't.
but that's the bill anyway. So I blame that, and I just think I think it's their dirty little secret.
Okay, cool. I can take that too. It's not like they do a good job of like spelling it out, but like I said, like, okay, so she's trapped in the tower, her soul is there. She's saying, look for me in the tower. Yvonne goes over, touches her shoulder, turns around and is all like skeletal, which doesn't make any sense. And then becomes all nice and pretty and doesn't make any sense. And goes, thank you. And then just disappears, which doesn't make any sense. But now, according to the dream logic, she is allowed to
She's
kind of
free.
like, I guess, move into people's dreams, which actually, I don't know. There's something about that that I never really had a problem with because I don't know. I know too many people who had dreams. I mean, you can say what, explain it any which way you want, but I know too many people who've lost people and then had visitations from them like in their dreams, and they thought like maybe their spirit was like, sending them a message or something like that. I don't want to take that away from them. But so it kind of makes me think like, okay, cool. Maybe she can like drift in like spirits can, like after they've passed, to like, do close what, tie whatever loose ends, before they move on to wherever they're moving on to, if that's what they're gonna do. But so when she finally comes back, okay, but she absorbs like the Freddy baby, which looks painful because she's literally, like walking away and using the rail and shit and telling Alice, no, don't come any closer. Just take your baby and leave.
And then a few seconds later,
which I fucking love. Okay, because we're jumping around, but let's just talk about the end because that is actually probably, it's another one of those kind of like ambiguous, I don't quite know what's going on resolutions. Like I get it, but I don't care. Because Freddy's got to go back. Like you got to put the genie back in the bottle.
right?
That's all that's happening. So, but what I love just visually, I think that's another thing about this movie is like where it doesn't make sense. Like I just kind of like either lean on the visuals or lean on the performances or the interactions between the characters, or I'm just waiting to get to one of those things. And most of the finale, I am just kind of like waiting, particularly once they get into the black room with all of just like the church remnants, like the stained glass round window stage, circle in the square kind of style of, it looks like they're about to do a play in the round. But and then Amanda, actually, you know what? This should be made into a play, this movie, and it should be played in the round. Anyway, but Amanda like stumbling back up in the hand, and then the door is shutting, and he's still trying to get out. And then finally, there's like one door, and it shuts, and it's like he's gone. And I don't know. There's something about the energy of that whole sequence that I enjoy a great deal. Yeah,
that beat is great, and the way it's staged, like physically staged with the miniatures, and I mean, you could look back and see it's like a little puppet of Amanda just sort of pivoting at the waist, but it's lit so well. Like I love it's a good beat to end on. I also like, I don't know, it evokes this idea that at least for the next few moments, but I like to imagine maybe more, is that like Amanda's gonna be keeping him at bay. Like this is now like their battle. That battle is sealed behind a door. Alice can go on.
Right.
Don't worry about it. Like Amanda's got it now, and this is
right.
We don't see him like truly die versus some of the other movies. It just seems like this fight will continue. But
which I appreciate because I never need them to die.
Yeah, it's a super cool shot. It's a super cool beat. I feel. Let's come back to the ending later. At least what came before that, like the showdown.
Yeah, because there's a whole lead up to there that we can jump back on when we want to.
But yeah, so I do find that opening Freddy's return to be a little sloppy. But
so the body,
Yeah, but there's so much. So like, first of all, okay, so right before that, I fucking love going into the asylum
Mhm.
with the 100 maniacs.
Ah, so good.
I'll never forget the first time I saw this, and you see Robert Englund, and for that first half
Ah,
second, you're just like, "Oh, fun, cool cameo." And then you're like, "Oh, wait a minute,
no.
you're the father."
Yeah.
I know a lot of sperms
Yeah.
happen,
Yeah.
but yours is the winner who swam the fastest.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's not just some fun gratuitous dream cameo, and
No,
yeah.
it is. Well, because there's the scare after she wakes up too. Okay, first of all, the situation
Oh
in and of
God, yeah,
itself
when
is
he's in the
terrifying.
right,
Oh my God, yeah. But then she wakes up and Dan's right there, and then he leans back, and then
and then
if
it's
you don't know
Freddy.
it's coming, if you don't
Well,
know
it's
it's
not Freddy.
coming,
Yeah,
that because the first time I saw it, it got me, and then the second time I saw it some years later, I had forgotten that that was going to happen, and it got
right.
me again.
And you feel comforted that Dan's there next to her.
Yeah,
Everything's
because
safe.
because also the thing that gets me about that moment, I'm like, if first of all, it's a jump scare that works, which is rare,
Mhm.
but shouldn't be, but it is. But another thing that I love about jump scares is when they hold, like when it's not just boom jump scare and then it's over. When it's boom and then there's a little bit of aftermath, because not only is he there with his face, because she could just wake up after that,
No,
but
but
no,
there's a
he
tussle.
flops on top of her, pins her down, and it's going on, and I'm like, oh no 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 no, and then finally, I think I don't even remember what the camera does, but then like I think it zooms in on her face, and then he's gone, pulls back, and the room is empty, and she's woken up, and you're like, fuck. And another thing I love about that, you ever wake up out of a nightmare and it's daylight and you should feel like everything's fine, but you just feel like your day is ruined. That
At
has
least
happened to me so many times where I
for a
wake
few
up and I'm
for
like,
seconds, yeah.
yeah, where you just carry that feeling into your waking life, and you're just like, you can tell yourself it was just a dream, but you still feel shitty, and that's what that little dream bit feels like to me. Like, I mean, just like wonderful little meticulous moments like that throughout this movie, and that's one of them for me that I appreciate. I just want to share that.
One of the things I appreciate
Yeah,
is, and you mentioned the pool scene earlier, and I just want to just jump on and the kid. They really do write the kids to just kind of act like kids.
yeah,
You
yeah.
don't see, especially as we get into the 90s and 2000s. I love Scream and Kevin Williamson, but all the knockoff Kevin Williamson, everyone's so witty and quippy aftermath,
Mm-hmm,
or
mm-hmm.
just adults writing stale dialogue because they don't know how kids sound.
Yeah,
But everything feels like really genuine and organic with those kids throughout this whole movie. Um, and one of the things I find refreshing in this movie is that after, like, I found it so refreshing in 3 that these kids all kind of understand something, and then Nancy allows them to like sort of speak their truth and someone understands them.
right.
And now it's been long enough where I'm now refreshed that like Alice has to convince people again that this
Yeah,
isn't. I had 2 movies in a row. People were like on Team Alice already, and now she's got it.
yeah.
Okay, so it breaks my heart. She loses Dan,
Oh God.
so now she's like alone. She doesn't have anyone who understands.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that, God, who does she talk to first?
Oh, Yvonne.
She
Yvonne's the
talks
one
to
who tells
Yvonne,
her.
and
Yvonne
here's what's
tells
great.
her.
She tells Yvonne, and then I think at some point she goes like, in fact, how did I actually wrote it down? Yvonne's like, let's keep this between us. And then it's like cut to her telling her friends, like in a bedroom, like
Yes.
everything.
Yes. Yeah.
I love me a good, like, all right, this is just between you and me. Cut.
So.
But yeah, but in Alice's case,
Yeah.
this shit is real.
Yeah.
Knowledge is power.
Mm-hmm.
I'm telling everybody.
Yeah.
And he's gonna be coming after you guys. And but that makes absolute sense because like it's a good choice. But I also feel terrible because she's doing this because she doesn't have Dan.
Yeah. I also love, I mean, as much as I love them as a tight knit group, I kind of love the way they don't believe her in the beginning. Because if they just believed her
Yeah,
like right off the bat, it wouldn't be
right.
authentic,
Well,
enough.
that's the other thing I like about this movie is that there's now a conflict that
Yeah.
I mean, it's a screenwriting 101, but like if you don't have Dan, who can you talk to about Freddy? Well, I talk to these guys.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it takes Mark some convincing, but Mark gets convinced.
Right.
Yvonne
She's the longest one. The one
really
who
has
takes
her
the
feet
longest.
planted for a really
Yeah.
long time. So much so
Yeah.
that it becomes like this point where like they're getting into it, and like Mark's like, look, I got the evidence. Like there is like a now someone
Right.
is now
Yeah.
on Team Alice, and someone's
Oh,
refusing to listen. But like, no, fucking
yes.
read. Like all
Yes.
that is good conflict and good storytelling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I even enjoy the fact that like when they're being told, like, well, I think the first thing Greta and Mark, I think, kind of give each other like a glance, like they don't know quite what's going on, but they don't want to tell her she's crazy or tell her that it's not true. So Greta just changes the subject and it's just like, let's talk about the baby,
Right.
you know. And they go, and they're still being compassionate, they're still being good friends, but and I think that's another thing that I like even about Yvonne. Like I was trying to ask myself, why is Yvonne, because I remember she kind of pissed me off the first time I saw it, but then once you're not crazy, I was like, okay, now you're exactly where I need you to be.
Right.
And she was for the rest of the movie. But watching her now, she doesn't bother me as much as say, and maybe I don't think it's just because she comes around later, maybe that helps, but she doesn't bother me as much as say a Priscilla Pointer in Dream Warriors, you know, like when, because I know she said that of her role, like she got told by fans that she that she was a bad guy, and she's like, I thought I was a good guy. And I'm like, in what script? You don't believe anything these kids are saying, and you keep pretending like you know what's best for them. That's not a good guy. But anyway, like you don't help. I mean, I understand that she thinks she's helping, but you also say a lot of bitchy lines like, I'm afraid you did this to yourself. You know, it's like, fuck you.
Right.
But Yvonne, I like that even though like she can get a little irrational, a little angry, like maybe she's just combative, maybe that's just the way she is, but also the fact that like she's the one who has to be the bridge between Alice and like a doctor. And be the one to like get this machine set up to like make sure that she's like, you know, getting an ultrasound because she thinks her baby's having nightmares that are going to kill people. And I understand where that could be alarming, a little concerning, especially like if you're in a medical field and you have to deal with some real ass shit that costs money, you know, and that costs time, that costs you your reputation.
Eddie,
and
in real life, not in the movies, in real life, if when your friend says, guy in my dreams is killing and the baby, like none of that sounds sane. So I get her.
Me too.
I get it. But I totally get it. At one point, like her and Alice are fighting in the room, and she mentions like, think about the baby or something. Alice is like, I am. Like she gets up and she's like, just had it. Like
you gotta think about something more than yourself right now. What do you think I'm doing?
Yeah, there's some good conflict, man.
Yeah,
it's really well
written. Totally.
What else do I like? Well, while we're talking about the baby to a certain degree, I'm going to tell you the other part that broke my heart. I'm sure you can relate. In fact, I think we've talked about this in the past. First of all, here's the thing that gets me now. Jesus, it's not even the main bit that I'm going to get to. We cut to, it's after she's like talked. I think it's, you know, after Dan's died. Yeah, after, and she's in the hospital. She finds out she's pregnant. She's talking to everybody. We cut to the kitchen, and she's just there crying at the counter.
Oh God.
And I'm like, oh, and like I know, like the movie has told me all the reasons why.
Yes.
This is the logical when you're alone breakdown scene.
Yep.
And she plays it beautifully. So props to her. And then what breaks my heart is Dad comes home and she asks if he's ashamed of her.
Yes.
And I love the way he simply tells her no. Again, this dude showed up to work with a handful of lines. Gave 1,000%.
Yeah.
And then they twist the knife in my heart by him saying, it'd be nice to hear like a little boy around the house again. And I'm like, oh God.
And it's all tied into where we came from, because you think, first off, you think about like the verbally abusive fuck that we know from 4.
Right.
And the fact that now he is not only telling her he's not ashamed of her, but he's bringing groceries home. Like she ran the house before. He was off working and she was in charge of like taking care of him. He's taking care of her. He stepped up and became a fucking parent. And then he doubles down.
Right.
and tells her, you know, like, I kind of hope it's going to be a boy because it would be nice to. I cry again.
I bet.
That is not new for me either. I have always wept at that moment because it gives you back the person you lost in 4, who again I didn't really spend a lot of time thinking about and everything. I knew that Alice was coming back into this movie because it doesn't really position itself as like, you know, an emotionally connected, you know, like through line with this family. It's just kind of like everything's like a wonderful little surprise that they give you from the last movie, like with the graduation and everything. So when we get to even remember Rick, and feel the loss again, you're just like, oh my God, they're like, this was so mindfully put together. This is a broken, well, I don't want to call them a broken family because they're actually healed,
but they're hurting.
But
you're always going to be hurting.
Yes, that still experiences the loss the way people do. You don't ever really kind of recover from a loss like that. You know,
and they wrote them.
Good days and bad days, and you know, time goes by, but there are times where you don't know. And I just, it's such a soft moment between the two of them. And he comes through for me again later when Dan's parents come over and okay, because this is maybe I've thought for a long time maybe I'm just like a glutton for a good soap opera, which I think if you make enough movies in a franchise, it has to become that. And I've heard that said of any series that runs longer than 2 seasons, essentially has to become a soap opera because there's no other genre to carry through that much storyline with that many characters. It has to be about who did what to whom, who knows about it, who doesn't know about it. Oh my God,
it happens to film franchises.
You know, yeah, right.
So go watch the Fast and the Furious and see ex-lovers back from the dead and this guy's secret brother, and you're just like, oh my God.
Oh, I'll still jump on that train one of these days.
But it becomes soap operas with flying cars.
Yay! Oh, I love that. Okay, sold. But so with this one, the soap opera for me is like, okay, we've already got the setup. We've already got like, oh my gosh, this is going to be like a loving household. Like like if all this were happening in part 4, I would have been really worried about that baby. But now I'm just kind of like, oh my God, he's going to his meetings and he's not ashamed of her and he's going to stand by her and he hopes it's a boy. But if it's a girl, he's going to love her too. You know that, so whatever. And then the Jordans, Mr. and Mrs. Jordan come over and start, you know, with their passive aggressive kind of like roundabout line of questioning, like we were wondering what you would like to do with the baby and everything. And she tells him, I would like to keep him. And again, Lisa Wilcox, another one who came to work. I mean, granted, she's the lead in the movie, but she delivered. Like, I am so with her on her journey with this baby and to protect it and even it, like they call it at one point. She's like, he's not a thing, he's a part of me and all of that. And I'm just like, yeah. And they're like, well, the courts may not agree with you. And that's when I'm like, kill this bitch. She needs a nightmare. And she didn't get one. And I'm not that pissed because I think they just kind of live miserably the rest of their lives. But
I mentioned this in one of the other videos, but like, there are so many like adults that I'm like, can we kill this adult? Not these teenagers. There's plenty of parents in this franchise who like deserve a nightmare.
Yeah, but the fact that there are people who are now Team Alice, like in her friend group and in her family of origin, I love the fact that like she just kind of like, you know, calls them out. She just has essentially like a Nancy part 1 moment, just like a that's enough moment, you know. But like with these parents who are trying to control her body and her baby's trajectory and everything like that, and act like she crazy because an unethical doctor decided to break his code, his what is it called, the Hippocratic Oath, and violate the sanctity of her privacy and go call it and say, hey, she's talking crazy, she's talking about a baby. Then okay, he should be disbarred or whatever it is you do.
Well, also, it's because Yvonne sold her out to the doctor too.
Kind of. I mean, but she was talking openly in front of him. Like, there's that too. Yeah. So I mean, because he makes the call literally right after her session, where she's like, he's taking this baby's spirits and he's trying to make the baby like him, and she's like raving and everything. So I'm like, I can't really fault Yvonne for that because she is kind of raving. And granted, it's not typical matriarchal behavior or whatever, but at the same, or matronly behavior or whatever. But it's it's none of his business to then call the parents of the deceased father's
Right.
you know, like, and
Hey,
be like,
you might want to
hey,
try to get that baby.
yeah, right.
She's a little Looney Tunes.
Yeah, and I'll see you at golf on Sunday. You know,
Yeah.
like that's exactly the feeling I get. So then, but then the fact that like after she does an incredible job of defending herself and speaking her truth and everything like that, immediately her father steps into it. It's just like, no, that I'm putting an end to it, because you know, you think you can come into my house and threaten my daughter? I think he says daughter.
Yeah.
But I love it. And then then she leaves.
He's so mild mannered throughout everything.
I
before
know.
this.
Yeah, he's really patient and quiet. He's just like, hey, his parents are here.
He has regret. To me, there's regret and shame for how he behaved before, and I see
Totally.
and then
Totally.
he gets well, yeah, I love that he plays that way so that the kitchen scene hits more too.
Right. And then after he's defended her and she's got him and she's leaving, I love that Mark gives them the stink eye as he exits the door. He like goes out the door, and just as he's about to shut it, just does one of these. And I'm just like, good friends,
also,
good family.
Earlier
Everybody's
in that
Team Alice.
scene,
I love it.
And earlier in that scene, he just like was like, oh, I'm passing by this really awkward.
Yes.
And I always thought he left, but then it turns out he was just standing off to the side the whole time.
He's not going to leave her.
But yeah, I love that he stays for the stink eye though. Yeah.
And I remember it being such, I mean, it probably doesn't seem like much now. I don't know. But at the time, I remember the scene preceding that where they're just like talking about it, and he's really getting into like looking up, you know, the mythology and Freddy's history and everything like that. And they're just, I think they're convening in her bedroom, just kind of like comparing notes and about like what the next step is going to be. And he's just like, this seems so, I don't know if the word is progressive, but just so kind of modern to me. The fact that he even mentioned, did you think about not having the baby?
Yeah.
And she's just, and she's just quiet, and she just hears him out, and she's like, I mean, no baby's dreams. And she just shares her position on herself, which I totally am behind, because it's a piece of Dan. It's the only thing she has like to remember him by. And also she'd be a great mom. I mean, she's a fucking like tiger mom in there, like, so I'm just really excited. I love talking about this movie.
No,
so,
but
yeah,
I love that if this is the plot of your movie, at some point, if this scene didn't exist, some producer, anyone who reads the script would go, there's an elephant in the room that needs to be addressed, and it should be in the script. I'm not saying that's the case, but I'm glad. What I'm saying is I'm glad they included that.
Yeah.
And he kind of brings it up with the level of tact that a teenage boy would.
Totally.
Whereas if I was 40, I wouldn't have broached it or said it that way. But like, and I love her response, and I love that, and that like going forward, like this is not how we're gonna do it. Got it.
Okay. Yeah, and that he's totally just kind of like, okay, like that's on board. That's done and done. I'm not going to spend the rest of the movie badgering you,
trying to convince you. Hey, no baby dreams. Ooh, there's an obvious answer here.
There's no kind of like, come on, Alice. I love that.
Right.
Because that's not who that character is either. And I like thinking of him as a good friend.
While we were just on the subject of them in that scene doing the research and all that.
Yeah.
I had to pause to make sure my eyes didn't deceive me, and I was correct. Every other movie, when they refer to Freddy, he's always referred to as the child murderer, the dirty child murderer. And we talked in the first one how you can infer that he was a molester, not just a murderer, because they constantly use the word dirty.
Yeah.
One of the newspaper headlines that they're researching says, child molester acquitted. And I'm like, a movie put it in print.
Okay.
This movie actually said it.
Okay, cool. I don't remember that. I was probably focused on something else. Maybe I was crying.
Pretty quick, but
okay.
Wow. I was probably crying. Yeah,
I was probably crying.
No, but I just thought, hey, here's the one movie that actually put it on Front Street. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
The closest it comes to getting on Front Street, I'd say, is Freddy versus Jason when he's like licking the photos.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And other things. But we'll get there.
Yeah.
But but that's pretty I mean, the fact that it was caught on camera and that you could see it, like I'm gonna look for it now.
Yeah.
Because I will watch this movie over and over and over again.
Yeah, like I enjoy this movie, but things about it are murky,
Yeah.
and I think that's not inaccurate to say. Like for example, Freddy. So like people are you could be awake and Alice could be awake and she'll sense a dream because the baby's having a dream and that's how it's killing people. But
Mhm.
then at one point, I think you see the baby in the womb,
Yeah.
and then you see the souls going in through
Yeah.
the little umbilical cord, and I went, okay, so he's taking the souls and he's feeding them to the baby. Got it. I still didn't fully understand that it's like I thought he was just using the baby to get to teenagers through the baby's dreams and get their souls. I didn't
Hmm.
really fully understand that no, he wants to like use the baby to like be reborn. I was like, oh, okay. And if it wasn't for Never Sleep Again documentary, where they
Yeah.
mentioned they're like, well, it's not perfectly made clear, but it was supposed to be that once it got all four of her friends' souls, then he could be reborn. I'm like, oh, that's not,
Mm.
yeah, that's fucking cut out of the
Yeah. That.
because that makes getting Yvonne so much a bigger
Yeah.
part of the story.
Yeah.
Yeah, at no point did they mention consuming all four of the friends would have allowed him to return.
No. No, they didn't.
And I don't even fully understand the idea of him returning. Like the first few times I ever saw it, I'm kind of just aware of it now.
I only ever thought it meant,
Murky.
yeah, murky. But I only ever thought it meant like, okay, so there's a baby that's already been dreaming of him. So he has a way back in, even if it's just through dreams, because he can kind of ride like a virus on this baby that's being born, go out into the world and start infecting other children. Like he can literally have this baby talk about nightmares the baby has had. Like it's not going to be the
Mm.
baby anymore, but once the baby has speech, he can like tell nightmares to other kids in the preschool. And wouldn't Freddie love that? So right?
Now there's a movie, and actually, I'd watch the successful version of where Freddy's not defeated,
Oh,
and this plan comes to fruition.
oh God. Ugh. I mean, I'd make that movie. I'd watch it. There was already kind of an allusion to it in one of those Freddy fan made trailers, where the only reason I say it is just because like you literally saw, I think for the first time ever, there was like a little girl on a bed and full on Freddy Krueger, like all burned with the claws and everything like that. But someone dressed as Freddy Krueger, like seated on her bed across from her, just with his claws kind of like drawing near her, and you're just like, and that was just like this weird sweeping shot around her bed of that happening, and it was like, it's just, oh, I need a shower now,
Yeah.
like I it's like, oh, I never needed to see that. Like I never needed to see a lot of the other things, like you mentioned, like the picture being licked and everything. I never needed to see that, but I
Oh,
really didn't need to, like, oh boy, there's a real sense of danger there, but it wasn't like an icky, gross, ill, like this is just distasteful, it's not even scary kind of gross, like in the remake.
right.
But I don't know, I just thought like he's all about being perverse and about violating things. So if he can violate the child's mind, like, because there was that line that she said about he's trying to make the baby more like him.
Yep.
So I'm like, yeah, maybe if this works, maybe he can start infecting other fetuses, like, I mean, I don't
Yeah, I
know.
never thought that.
Oh, okay, well.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting
it's
take. My brain never went there.
it's vague enough that, like, if you think about it enough, like your brain can basically take anything away. And but again, it's not enough of a, it's not a deal breaker certainly, but it's not even enough of a thing, because I also know that it got made in a vacuum, a time vacuum.
Actually, I was just thinking about that.
Yes, yeah,
God, what I forget the director's name.
Stephen Hopkins.
Was I was watching. Like, he said he was hired on Valentine's Day, and the release date was August. And I'm like, holy crap, that's 6 months
Right.
from
Yeah.
hired to release.
They had
Wow.
4 weeks of
4 weeks of prep.
pre-production. Yeah. Jesus.
Yeah,
Nightmare. That's a nightmare. Make
absolutely.
a movie about making this movie.
Right? and there are times where I can feel it. I can sort of,
Sure. Yeah.
yeah. Because they're I don't mean to sound insulting, but like there are beats that we've talked about, like the ending shot or of the fight
Right.
with Amanda Krueger and the hand and the doors that are very stylish in their direction.
Right.
But there are a lot of exposition scenes in this that are very flatly directed too. And they are economically shot to like get through it.
Like,
Almost everything in the last third of the movie, like if they're in a bedroom
okay.
talk, like the performances are there.
Right.
But there are times where I started to be aware of like this is an exposition scene and this is, oh, we have to do this because of Freddy and the baby and then this and then I'm like, yep, okay, got that. Like here's a why and here's a thing and then it just it's not
Okay.
badly directed, but there are times where the momentum for me gets a little limp, and I guarantee you, if they didn't have such a specific schedule and had to get certain things done, I feel like there's some flatter scenes that could have been elevated to match some of the peaks of this film.
Right. There was a version, an earlier version that they talked about in Never Sleep Again of where they said, well, you've written, oh wait, no, am I thinking about the wrong? No, yeah, there was an initial script, but they thought it wasn't quite the right direction. Like it was like too rooted in like
you
an
wrote like a
authentic
Kubrick movie.
Yeah, was that the one? Or I can't remember if that was the original script for this one or for the next one. But one of them was like the Kubrick.
It was about the baby and Freddy,
Okay.
and they're like, you wrote it like a Kubrick movie.
Yeah, and going back into Freddy's
and they're
past.
like, yeah, cool, right? And they're like, no.
Yes, you're right. This was supposed to be the Kubrick one because this was supposed to be the first one where we reach even farther into, like there were remnants of it in the next movie, but where we reach into like Freddy's backstory, like what was it like to be a child Freddy? What was it like to be a teen Freddy? Like we were supposed to kind of like not to necessarily create sympathy, but to create context.
I think they also talked about how like in an earlier version of the script when it was all about like how everyone has like a shared dream consciousness. How like if Freddy can come up to us, in theory, couldn't we go down to him?
That was the sixth one. That was
but they talk about writing that for 5, and like you were saying, like how things kind of ended up in 6. That definitely happens in 6.
Yes.
There was a version of that for 5.
Okay.
I just think it's interesting that certain elements from 5 end up in 6.
Yeah, me too.
I have to give not props, but I need to address, attention must be paid to Greta's mom.
Yeah.
And we've already seen parents do this in the series, but the fact that Greta will mention like, my friend just died yesterday, can you come? And just the fact that she's so dismissive of the fact that her daughter's friend just died. He might be the ultimate as far as like the degree of her performance, the intensity, just her complete dismission, dismissal of her daughter's feelings.
Dismissal,
all for the sake of this party. While some fucking guys like with a body like you, like the second, I don't care if he's talking about photography and modeling.
I don't care.
Don't
gross.
say that about my daughter in front of me, you piece of shit.
My teenage daughter.
Yes. But yeah, no, she gives one of the most terrible parents most terribly parental terrible performance of a terrible parent.
Well, she full on dismisses the grief in front of company. Says like,
exactly.
Oh, he was just a friend. He wasn't someone special. Like, date my daughter. That's essentially what I get from that. But
like I thought Kristen's like rich mom was like bad. Like no.
Well, this one's bad because there is oddly enough there is a little saving grace for me with her. After Dream Mom says some of my favorite lines, just like nothing but the best for Greta and don't talk with your mouth full, dear. I love those lines. But afterwards, when Greta full on does her
God,
and everything, she's actually for the first time expresses some kind of concern for her daughter. She's not like, Greta, you're making a spectacle of yourself. She's just like, Greta, and it actually finally something seems to be registering. It doesn't redeem the character for me, but it does.
Too late.
No, of course, but because she dead. But it does at least let me get to see a glimpse of humanity and otherwise over the top. I mean, I thought Marge Thompson was over the top in one. Greta's
Nope.
mom, whose name I don't even know. I tried to look it up. She's not credited as Greta's mother, and they never say her name in the context of the movie, so I don't know who she is. And there's no photograph to clue me in. But that I love what she does.
It's not vamp, but it is. It's definitely dialed to a very specific degree. And she's great for what. Yeah.
Totally memorable.
Here's another little thing I just want to bring up.
Yeah,
it's minor, but we have it. But I always go, huh? We have the dream where Freddy is being attacked by the mob of 100 maniacs.
Yeah,
or 99 maniacs, and they rip off his arm, and I'm like, cool. And then they take a leg, and you see the leg.
Yeah.
And then we get into the chapel.
Yeah.
And he's got like the arm is like ripped off, and like the sleeve is tied.
Mm-hmm.
So there's continuity from what just happened. I'm like, that's great. Good dream continuity, right? But he's standing on both of his legs. I'm just like, what? What about the leg? I just saw the leg.
He had enough time to reconnect the leg properly. He wanted to do it for Alice.
No.
Just to be like, look, I survived.
It's performative.
It's performative. It's for her. That's what I always thought. It never bothered me. Never bothered me. Also because it leads into the final showdown, which is it's like the ruins of the chapel combined with like all those Escher staircases, which I adore. Blatantly. Yeah.
I mean, and the only it's such a nitpick, but I think I've really yet to nitpick much in this series. Mm-hmm. But at one point, like they're running down the stairs.
Mm-hmm.
And like this like it's like all woodwind, and the score is very silly. It's like almost comical, and I'm like, oh, you're deflating. This should be like it's not like it has to be scary, but like what's happening with the cast should be more intense than this like little fluty ditty that's happening. And and then it ends, and I'm like, oh, thank God we're not playing that music anymore. It's a little bloop, 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 bloop.
Well, I mean, again, like that's one thing I would buy the Scream Factory release like complete, even if it were just like the video assist footage that they had if they couldn't put the regular footage in, but they do have it. They showed some of it in Never Sleep Again, which makes me think like there is an intact, uncut version of this movie somewhere.
Extended kills.
Give it to me. Because let's talk about the kills a little bit. I actually like I remember watching the movie and not feeling any kind of like cheat except for one kill, and it can't be fixed with an extended cut. It needs like a complete other direction to go in. But let's talk about the good ones first. I love Dan's kill. I love that him turning into the motorcycle, and I do like that music isn't terribly like nightmarish. It's more 80s action movie.
Yeah, but it's a contrast to how nightmarish what's happening is. Therefore, it really, really works.
Yeah.
That death scene really works for me.
Me too. Yeah.
Well, one, I have a thing, and that movie, like every once in a while, like some people have like a bug thing. Therefore, they don't like the bug death scene for. I have a real problem with machinery fusing into humans, specifically when the humans are completely unwilling, and it's being forced into them and onto them and through them.
Yeah.
Especially with sci-fi horror, I don't like computers gone bad and circuitry and cybernetics and embeddings. And so the second that there's a motorcycle with it's putting its wires into him and he's screaming, it's going into his legs.
His screams are great
and then,
too.
And then his face and the skin breaks off and now he's fully fused. That shit, that's like something I would dream and I would not like it.
Yeah.
And then the fact that it's coupled with, because we're already having a bad dream I don't like. Then you add to the fact that like the motorcycle is speeding and he can't control the speed, and the fact that the music is so action movie and speedy and kind of 80s silly, like it's the lack of control also. Yeah. Because all you want to do is slow down or I'm gonna die. Yeah. So it's like a double whammy for me. That's like honestly, that's the most effective part of the whole movie for me.
Oh,
really
cool.
fucks me up.
Yeah, there's one moment in particular that I always think of when I think of that kill, and it's just like after his face has been like pulled, burned, whatever.
Of
Just
his
like
eyes.
it's the eyes when they're all wide and they just look down
Yeah.
at the little robot Freddy in the motorcycle that's talking to him, telling him this boy has a need for speed. And but again, like it's an authentically not original Nightmare on Elm Street, but Nightmare on Elm Street franchise kill. There is nothing about it that like feels uncharacteristic of like what has come in the movie before and the movie prior to that one, which are the ones that I tend to, I don't know if enjoy the most is the word to put it, but I mean they become part of what I watch for. And the fact that I got that in this movie from this kill and from the Greta kill, I thought it was, I think it's incredibly memorable. I think it's, even though I would in a horrible way, I would love to see Freddy feed her stomach to herself and to see everything that was cut out of that. Because even Erica Anderson, and that's another thing that makes me love her, said that, you know, it lost impact, you know, like she would have loved to have seen it like, you know, like the original version for it to actually like kind of be the death the way it was intended to be seen. That said, the fact that I care about her, the fact that like she's put into like this high chair of death, and the fact that he is force feeding her, the fact that her face grows and grows and grows and grows and grows while everyone's laughing at her and her mother's saying those lines I love. And then the fact that like after, I think it's like right before her death moment, where Alice is looking into the refrigerator and all the little stop motion animation fungus and whatever starts growing on the food, and there's eyeballs and shit, and she's like, what the fuck? And then all of a sudden there's Greta in the door of the refrigerator with her full face reaching for Alice. Alice grabs her and she's like calling for her father, and it doesn't quite make sense in the same way that like that Kristen postcard from hell with Freddy doesn't quite make sense. Because the fact that his father doesn't hear it and that the baby's dreaming, I'm thinking like, okay, so it creates like some weird kind of bubble for Alice where she can like exist in a half dream, half
it does make sense
awake
to me.
realm. Yeah,
she can see the baby's dreams. Like there's a connection point.
But like a fraction of them. It's like she can share. She can have 1 foot in this world and 1 foot in like the subconscious world. Like,
correct.
Yeah. So I appreciate that. And then finally, like just like her death, like I should be laughing. I mean, because it looks funny. Just her standing there going, but
it's not funny to me.
It isn't, because it's. I mean, I can imagine being there on the day. Like, I'd probably want to laugh because it's a silly thing to ask someone to do. But the fact that it's a person who is in pain, who is, and not even in pain, but who is like, I mean, there's a very specific thing to choking, because there is pain, but that's not the most predominant thing. There's also, there's a lot of things. Choking is like panic mixed with an unwillingness, you know, with something that your body is doing. You know, like when you're choking on food. Like anybody who's ever choked on anything, there is a little panic moment where you're just like, get it out, get it out, get it out, get it out. And she's like kind of trapped there in that moment, and everybody's witnessing it. And then when she finally collapses onto the table and it's just an eyeball through a glass table, it's and just the music that comes in after that, it's just this like wow, 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 wow after it, with this like low, sad kind of like note that just carries us from like one scene to the other, which seems to kind of like visit the aftermath of, you know, some kind of like sorrowful aftermath of any one of these deaths, wherever anybody's mourning anything, or you know, whenever we're as the audience allowed to mourn, that theme continues throughout this movie. So I appreciate that too. But
Are we moving on to another death? Because I have
because if you got something else to say, please.
I'm glad you brought up the whole fridge thing, because that's one of the little things that really works for me in this, is that we went from Alice in the last movie pulling people into her dreams to now her kid having her kid, when it has dreams, is pulling her friends into them.
Right.
But the new wrinkle is that she gets glimpses of it.
Yeah.
Not only with this, but also with Dan. Like, she's just at the diner. I'm gonna reach for like some coffee, and then boom, like and then he's dead outside. I don't know. It's just, to me, it's a new problem that you're going about, and all of a sudden, like, here's a flash of your friend dying. Wait, what? What? I don't understand. And now you're just scared and terrified and have to go find your friend. Like, fifth movie in, fourth sequel in, you still give me a little something new, a new problem, a new hiccup. So props to them for that.
Yeah, totally. And also just before that, sorry, the fact that Greta, this is another thing. Like, I love that there was a soap opera something in my head that told me to, tells me to watch things a particular way. I remember the first time I saw the movie when Greta's just like mourning Dan in her room with all of her dolls and everything. She's looking at like his yearbook photo. She's got a photo of them all together as a group and everything. And she's just sitting there crying, just missing him. I remember as a kid being a little confused because I thought, are you setting it up that she had like an extra batch of feelings for him or something, and that because I don't recall. I got that when I was a kid. I think I was conditioned to, because anytime somebody mourns someone alone, I think I'd only ever seen it if they were family or if there was like a love, like a beyond friendship love. But what I've come to, and I think I realized what it was almost immediately. But for a split second, I was thinking like, oh, was she, like in that. I don't know, in that dumb way, but I love the fact that like right after that I'm just kind of like, no, it's just her friend. She's just a good person. And so I appreciate that. But okay, so we got that. Okay, so Mark, love Mark. They even set it up like he's terrified of blood.
Yes.
And they even pay it off a little bit when he's hanging in the house about to be absorbed into one of those like womb-like,
Yes,
holes.
This is the third movie with a womb hole in it. Yeah.
Right. So he's sitting there going, "Oh!" Alice pulls him out while he was holding on to it or whatever. Something cut his hands. He looks like, and faints. And I always laugh because it's adorable. But they've set it up that he's afraid of blood. And also he's such a vulnerable guy. Like, it would have broken my heart to see him either have to, I don't know, bleed to death or watch others be bled to death, but be subjected, like maybe Clockwork Orange style, to have to watch. I don't know what Freddy would have done, but it's enough of a fear. Like, I get it. Like, I don't share it. I won't faint at the sight of someone else's blood, but my heart will start racing a little bit more. I'll be like, oh shit. Like you go into like, okay, a slight panic and slight just survival like crisis mode. So it was such a great setup, and it just pains me that it's one of the most cartoony, I mean literally, but even before he's a cartoon, like the fact he's like, yeah, you burned lip dick and everything, because even the path into the dream when he's like in the black and white world and then he sees the black and white Greta doll bleeding from like where Freddy fed her to herself, which we didn't get to see in the theatrical release, but whatever. It didn't matter. I'm just kind of like, that's Greta. And he has to see her that way. I'm already like, oh no. And she's calling his name and like, help me, Mark. And he's just looking at her helpless, just saying, Greta. And I'm like, oh fuck, Freddy, you're a piece of shit. And then in comes Super Freddy. Or even before that, Freddy's on a skateboard. It's in black and white doing,
and it's got little claws on it.
I know. And he's essentially doing the same face, the same kind of grimace that he did in the first movie as he's like climbing over pipes to get to Nancy, where he's just like, like, I'm gonna get you. But it worked in that movie. It doesn't work in this movie because he's on skateboard just going. And I'm not about it. And then when he turns him into a thing, basically an Archie comic is what he looks like, and then he bleeds the paint out. I mean, that wasn't even, it's like blood, obviously blood. Like, what is happening?
Well, then you see his real body and the blood is coming out onto the comics.
No, but he's dead, so the blood is for him, right? Says I.
Sure. And so he's not alive to see the blood. I actually get quite a lot out of the way he dies as a comic, just because I have a real, it's so he's so victimized, like he's so helpless, like it's otherworldly. Like you've been turned
Mhm.
into fucking paper. You are a cartoon. You're not flesh and blood anymore. He's essentially it's you've been transformed into like a soulless, aware, tragic thing. Like it I don't want to say it bothers me, but it like borderline bothers me.
Okay.
It works for me.
It doesn't work.
It used to disappoint me because it wasn't gruesome, and
Yeah.
I'm here for some gore.
Hmm.
But no, it's kind of a disturbing idea to take away your humanity and to make you that helpless and to be that formless. It's tragic, and I don't like it. Like it really gets to me now.
Oh, that's sweet.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I don't. I
And
would
just to
love to have
see
that
his little
reaction.
sad drawing, like, oh yeah,
That doesn't get to me.
it
I'm just like, that's not Mark. That's Archie. That's
no. Although I am glad you brought up the fear of blood in the first dream, because
yeah,
my thing is once he's back, not only does he believe, but to me, the terror he must be feeling is that he's an artist. You
yeah.
lose these, you lose your livelihood. So
Hmm.
like I instantly am just terrified because I find
Yeah,
myself in issues.
and plus he carries it back into the real world with him, a la the franchise, and
Yeah.
gets to use it as proof when he's or as proof
Hmm.
he thought when he's
To
trying to
Yvonne.
convince Yvonne, just kind of like he invited me to his house last night. And it's like I love you,
Yeah.
but yeah, no, I just wish. I don't know. I mean, if you plant, because I think the problem is every time I see that scene. Also, I love that scene at the pool, but just like when somebody like breaks their hand on like a beer bottle, and he's going all,
Hmm.
and then even at the end of the scene, he's still like, it's like looking at it with a pout. It set up something that I want to see, and whereas like in the preceding movie with the roach death and everything like that, where that went above and beyond, this one it always falls a little short for me, and that's one moment where I'm just kind of like, if anybody who doesn't like this movie would cite this as like an example of why, I don't think it's enough to disqualify the movie, but I might get it a little bit more because I don't know, it's not visceral enough. What is more visceral than blood? Like it's literally coursing through every crevice of our bodies, and um, so it's not visceral. It's the opposite of visceral. It's detached, and yeah. But I that's my takeaway from it. That's probably one of the biggest criticisms I have, aside from like the edited deaths, which still work for me. But
Yeah.
this one
I
feels
don't
like a miss for
I
me.
don't
It's a
feel
miss.
like I'm missing footage. Like that, all the kills work. When I
Yeah,
found out there was more, I was like, oh, but they like Greta's death still works. It still bothers,
yeah,
but like it does everything it needs to do without
yeah.
added more gore. Fine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, yeah. I remember not liking Mark's death as much as I end up over time liking it more. My only nitpick is like there's two little shots where I could see a piece of unpainted wood, so it reads as tan and not black and white.
Oh no.
Like at one point, like when this all of it falls down,
Yeah.
you could see like a wood block with like two screws that was clearly behind that is now fallen into frame. And I'm like, oh, it's so tan
Oh.
compared to all the other gray.
Oh, that's a
But
shame.
for the most part, that effect really they pulled that off
Yeah.
so well.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I still like him. I mean, even like the him going into the comic book like that, that's pretty cool. Like I can watch that, and
Yeah.
it feels like
Take on me.
but it's also like adjacent to, again, I mean, I love when there's like symmetry. It doesn't have to be the exact thing. It's like don't do the same thing, but do something that's like of the same, in the same family, in the same rule book or whatever. Because it makes me think about Alice in the fourth movie going through that movie screen, him transporting into a
Yes.
comic book. Totally cool. And the way he does it, and the fact that it hurts. Like that is probably more visceral to me than his actual kill. It's just his like, ah! As he's, because I don't know
Yes,
what's
that
happening.
scream is
I'm
great.
like, oh my God, ow, 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 ow. And everything with the Greta and everything leading up to that. But then when he turns into, what's the name of his superhero? I can't
Oh,
remember.
I already forgot.
Yeah, his
The
little guy
Dark
with the
Defender or
guns.
something.
Yeah, whatever his name is. Darkwing Duck. When he turns into Darkwing Duck. Curse you, Red Baron. When he turns into that guy, because that was another thing I had never noticed before, but like he's got a stack of comics, and his favorite guy is this guy who I don't know. I don't think it's a real, a quote unquote real comic book character. But because he's reading like Fantastic Four, X-Men, and I think, is it Spider-Man? I can't remember,
He's
but he's got
reading
like
a
all
lot of
these.
Spider-Man. Yeah, at one point he was reading Rom the Space Knight.
Yeah.
He dies on top of a Defenders comic. Like, yeah.
Mhm. You know what? That might have broken my heart a little bit more. If he did, maybe that's what it is. He's not reading Archie. So to make him like put him in his own clothes and make him kind of look like, just an ordinary teen comic book character doesn't hurt as much as it would be if he had to be turned into like a paper version of his comic book hero
Right.
self. And that was getting massacred by Freddy. That would have gotten to me. But so
I can see
anyway,
that.
I have notes.
It's more just the way they drew his face. It works on me.
Oh, you're so sweet. Yeah, aside from that, like overall, like this thing, because I don't have much more to say. It's just, I mean, I'm not oftentimes like a horror for production design either, but there's something about this aesthetic that kind of felt like a return to a gothic, dark, otherworldly feel. Like even like you were talking about in the chapel, like between Amanda, Sister Mary Helena, and Freddy. There's something that's so incredibly epic of the way they talk to each other. It's almost like they're moving into these positions and someone's going ding, ding, ding. And it's like, okay, it's on. And because another thing that I loved about it, that I love about it now that I didn't like about it when I was a kid, I was young enough when I saw 5 that I gasped when and she's like, I will not allow this abomination to continue or whatever. And he's just like, he's just like, we'll see, bitch. We'll see. And I was like,
and he backs up into fog.
He called his mom a bitch. And when I was a kid,
that's how you know he's a bad boy.
Yeah. I was like, oh shit. No, he's not just like a bad boy. He's like a bad boy. Like he's like a mean kid. Like, because there's something very, I think this has been said before, but there's something, this is why it appeals to so many like preteen kids, but there is something very kind of douchey 13-year-old energy about Freddy Krueger, because there is
I told you 3 times to take out the trash. Okay, I will. Bitch.
Yeah, right. Something so defiant 13-year-old doesn't listen to shit. And you didn't know me when I was 13, so you never knew this part of me. But you got me the year after, thank God, because you might not have liked me very much if you met me when I was 13. Apparently, I was a nightmare. I was the nightmare. But yeah. So I mean, there's something about that like my inner kid, but who I was then when I was watching him call his mother a bitch. That was just like, oh, I better not play with him, like now you're that kid at the back of the class who I'm just going to ignore, keep my eyes on my paper. If you try to copy off me, I'm going to tell on you. I don't give a shit. I don't want to be affiliated with you. I don't want you to lean on me. I don't want to have anything to do with you. That's who Freddy is to me in that particular moment and in most of this movie. Just like a gross kid. And also just the fact that like she's like, look for me in the tower. It's like, you'll never find her. See, even that, the way he says, like, you'll never find her, always kind of implied, I don't know why. I mean, I just always thought it meant he knew exactly where she was.
Probably.
So
she's boarded up behind a wall.
Might that mean he's the one who put her there? Like, how would he know? How would he know?
He's fucking Dream Demon. He fucking just knows shit.
I think he did it.
I find it's more. I guess it's just kind of interesting, the idea that in this realm of dreams, like Freddy has all these powers, and then we introduce the idea of, well, Kristen and Alice has some sense of power, but like what? Like this isn't a complaint, but like his mom all of a sudden now is like a player, like she has, and he's scared of her, and she has strengths in this world, and I'm like, interesting, the idea that like his father doesn't show up and is like, well, now I have power too. Like, what is it about his mom? Is it the fact that she's a nun, or is it something more just the idea that she's who birthed him, and there is that tie because he's so powerful? And if you're telling a story about Alice being pregnant, then it absolutely makes sense thematically if this is a story about the powers that mothers have, and if you're quite literally giving her power, I get it. It's an interesting choice, and I don't think it's an accidental one.
Yeah, I always attributed it to the fact that her soul is not at rest. So she has
before
access.
she gets
Like
power.
she hasn't passed on. I mean, she believes in heaven, obviously, but she
Well,
hasn't passed on there because she was trapped, and
and
now
3 and
that
4 have set up souls and him taking souls because that's
sure,
not present in 1. He's just
yeah,
killing teenagers.
yeah,
It
that's fine.
becomes something more again with this loose trilogy of 3, 4, 5.
But also, I mean, that could be just him. I mean, that's also the first time he's moving into his power as a dream demon, if that's what you want to call him, or a dream visitor,
It slipped. It
a
slipped the
dream
tongue.
terrorist.
He doesn't truly become a demon until Freddy vs. Jason, and we'll get to that.
Okay, so yeah, so okay then, dream terrorist, and
Sure.
and so he could be just like moving into his power and not even know exactly what the extents are himself. You know, there are times throughout this franchise where something will happen, where somebody will not defeat him, but will like incapacitate him, and he will have a shocked look on his face, like,
Yes.
"Oh, I didn't know you could do that," you know?
Yeah.
Oh shit, I better
I
turn
love
into
me
something else, bitch.
I love me a good Freddy. Ooh! Like, yeah. And we kind of get that when he doesn't want to go through the door because
Yes.
Amanda's down there. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
And also, I think, yeah.
Well, I also think part of it is they set up in 3 with the idea of if you're going by the rules of like Christianity and Catholicism and like Judeo, whatever, like the cross works on him. Sacred ground, like God stuff works on him. So the fact that like it's not just that she's his mother, it's the fact that she was a woman of God, I think plays a part of it.
I always think faith alone is probably something that can get, you know, like exterminate him or at least keep him at bay. It's just like not giving your faith into him, because he does say this is God in the first movie, but keeping your faith in something that is actually not out to hurt you, but something that's going to help you. I mean, now we're getting all theological, but
we're just talking about shit that's not even there. So,
but there was something, as much as I like for its inventiveness and for, you know, all the feels that it gives me with the interactions of the kids among themselves and everything like that, because this one continues that on for some of the characters, and also still like creates like new characters that I still manage to care about like almost instantly, and love just like their way that they deal with each other. I mean, because there's also amends made. I think about like when Yvonne is in the warehouse after Greta's gone, and Yvonne and Alice are talking to Mark, trying to get him on, well, Alice is trying to get him on board, and Yvonne's trying to get everybody just to kind of like admit, you know, that their feelings, I guess, just to kind of mourn together. And then she starts to walk away because you're like, well, get out, because, you know, he doesn't want to deal with her. And I'm just like, oh, fuck yeah. But you're a good friend, because he runs after Yvonne and wraps his arms around her. He's just like, I'm sorry. It's just like, you know, I got a lot of like shit going on right now. And I'm just like, yeah, we all do.
Yeah. But prior to that, I was like, what he's saying is right.
Yeah.
Maybe not how he's saying it, but what he's saying. And I love the way that scene turns.
Yeah. And one of my favorite lines is just, I think he's like moving out of frame. It's right after he converts to believing in the Freddy stuff. And he's with Alice. He's just kind of like, and she's going to go take care of something. He's like, yeah, you do that. I'm going to go find out more about this guy, Krueger. And he just walks out of frame. I always loved it. It's a little like action hero, comic book hero moment for me.
Which is appropriate for him.
Yeah. So I mean, overall, like, yeah, I love this movie unironically, and I was really welcoming this darker kid at the back of the class, Freddy energy that I was getting, rather than kind of like the self-proclaimed James Bondian MTV energy that I was getting from him in 4. I don't dislike it. It's still Freddy, but this one made him dark again, even though the makeup, you know, they didn't get to take as much time with it as they said they wanted to. The performance is still there, and the atmosphere is still there. I'm even just like, oh my God, whenever they're in Weston Hills, or the asylum wing of Weston Hills, with all those swinging lamps and the rusty walls and everything, take my money.
Yes, there is a considerable amount of gothic direction and art direction in this.
Yeah.
I like this movie quite a bit. I do feel that parts of it feel flat, and then parts of it really elevate. And I remember for a little while, I used to often wonder, just in that hand, that like guiding hands that producers have. You know, you went from Rachel Talalay, and I love her whole journey, but she produced 3 and 4.
Mhm.
and then she wasn't available to produce 5
Yeah.
because she was working on Crybaby. That I kind of I always wondered. I'm like, is the reason why some of these scenes just kind of for me is it because Rachel Talalay is not producing this movie? And I think nowadays I also just realized no, I think it was the fact that they had fucking 3 or 4
Yeah.
months to shoot this and knock it out, and
Right.
sometimes that's just how it is. But
And there was very little script for this one too, or if there was, that was constantly changing.
yeah.
The actor who played Mark,
Oh
Joe
yeah,
Seeley,
I know
said
he.
like you wouldn't even memorize your lines because you knew they'd be different pages the
Yeah.
morning of. So yeah, so there's that too.
Yeah, I will say this. I did the podcast at the Frida when I did the marathon,
Hmm.
the Nightmare on Elm Street marathon. One of the questions they asked me was if they would do another Nightmare on Elm Street, like what would you want it to be? And sometimes I don't work well under pressure when it comes to like coming up with a good answer right away.
Yeah.
I just remember, so I said like, look, they did a Freddy versus Jason versus Ash comic that was based on the unproduced script.
Hmm.
Just go make that because that was a really damn good story.
Yeah.
Now that I've had more time to think about it, I don't know a full story, but I would pick up with Alice's kid, and I would bring back
Jacob.
Alice. Yes, like
Yeah.
that's where you want to get my nostalgia continuity thing going. Pick up with Alice and Jacob.
Do you want Whit Hertford to still play him?
Sure.
Like grown up, yeah, because he's still working. He's still knocking it out and like on
showed up
TV
and
all the
stuff,
time. Yeah. That'd be amazing. Oh my
Right?
God.
But yeah,
I want her too. I want her there
you
too.
absolutely have to bring her back as one of the only good Springwood parents.
Yeah. There you go. Let's redeem this next generation of parents.
She raised a little warrior just in case, you know. And,
there was some script for a Freddy versus Jason 2 that I got a hold of online years ago that had Alice, or maybe it was just a Freddy versus Jason. I can't remember now, but it had Alice. No, it wasn't the comic, but I don't think so. It was a script, but it had Alice, and she mentioned Jacob. I think he ended up coming up later in the comic, and Tommy Jarvis was there, and Alice and Tommy Jarvis linked up and fought Freddy and Jason together. I don't know, is that in the comic?
Well, so what they did was they had a script. Well, they had several attempts, but they had, there was a script for Freddy versus Jason versus Ash.
Right.
The young VPs at New Line couldn't get it made. Freddy vs. Jason did all right, but it wasn't a big enough hit to warrant investing in a sequel. Eventually, Dynamite Comics published as a comic. That comic was a hit. Now, that comic was based on a movie script, whereas as far as what I understand is that comic did well, so they made a second comic book, Freddy vs. Jason vs. Ash 2. And what you're describing is what that comic was about. It was about a survivors group of various characters from Friday and Nightmare franchises, including Alice. And then Tommy Jarvis shows up and saves the day, and they like jump in his van, and they're like all these characters from Friday and Nightmare are in it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Cool.
And it gets a little silly because like Freddy takes over like Washington D.C. and like it's like Freddy for president and stuff. It's the Freddy plot isn't as great as the hero plot is. Still worth a read. Freddy vs. Jason vs. Ash, though, awesome read.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I've never been truly aware of like whether I'm right in feeling Rachel Talalay's absence in this, but that is all redeemed when she takes over directing the next movie. So we can get to that next time. Eddie's saving it all for next time. So we'll see you back here when we discuss Freddy's Dead, the Not So Final Nightmare. But it's been nice talking part 5 with you, Eddie.
Yeah.
Woohoo! I'm glad you love it as much as you do.
Me too.
Yeah. Thanks for watching, everybody. Find us on Instagram and Facebook. Here's some links in a moment.